Well, hello YouTube Vintage Stereo Restores. Been working on this one a little bit, the Sansui AU-505, and realized I was short on some parts, so I had to do a parts run today. Rather than order them, I went to one of the wholesalers near me, and actually some of the stuff was a pretty good deal. Some of it might be interesting to fit in place, but here we have 1500 microfarad can capacitors. They have 3 lugs. These are the coupling caps to the speaker circuit. Well, here's the ones that replace it. They're 2200, 63 volt. I don't know how this pinout's going to work. I'll cross that bridge. These are really glued. In fact, on this one here, so I have this preamp board. I've been working on it. And you have to be really careful leaving it hanging here by the wires, because the wires can only take so many twists and turns. But to take this board out is quite a bit of desoldering. On this side over here, I'd prefer not to, because I want to preserve the foil. So I just started working on it. Here's where it gets really tricky. In the schematic, it shows 2sc871 NPN transistors. This is the tone control circuit. And 2sc871s in the phono preamp. Well, that's not what's there. They're 2sc1312s. And they have a BCE. So when you're looking at the flat part of the transistor, from the front, leads down, it's base collector emitter. And most of the replacements, so there's a few you can go with on here. A KSC1845C, that's really good. I use actually 2n3904As. It's actually a closer match to the specs of the 1312. The 1312 weren't replacements, they're just substitutions at the factory, because the 871s had a little bit of reputation fairly early on as going noisy. Not like the C458, not that level of noise, not a thunderstorm, more like a bowling ball rolling down an alley. Anyway, so I'm going to replace those, so 6 to replace here. 3904As, I've used that in this very amp before a few years ago, in several different ones, in a 222, in a 555, in a 5900. I think what that other one was, several Sansui receivers, and they are a good match. I know the specs look a little different, the HFE looks a little bit different, but in this circuit the gain is the same, and that's what's important, and the noise floor is low. And these have black leads. They have started to corrode right up into the transistor. So working on something like this, you have to be pretty careful soldering and desoldering. So I go one component at a time, maybe 2 at the most. I'm working on it mostly in this position. Let's see if my iron's hot enough. I just pull him out from the other side, like that. There's a lot of 1 microfarad caps in here. As far as caps I'm using, most of them are going to be the German Worth caps that I've been using, the 4,000 hour ones, the ATLI series. But I actually have, I bought some, ooh, I'm trying to reach, sorry. Some United Chemcons and some other Nishikons. Which series are they? PW. And this is one thing, it's not really a complaint, but I've been dealing with the number of electronic stores, electronic wholesalers in my areas is just getting smaller and smaller. We're left with one warehouse type store, and they have electrical supplies, plumbing supplies, wire for people that do cable pulling. A lot of stuff for like BIX terminals, if you're familiar with that, and telecom. A lot of industrial stuff, you know, like gloves, hats. They also have robotics stuff for the robotics programs at the high schools. And they have electronics. Most of it is surplus, like end of run stuff. Some of the prices are really good, some are bad, but it's the only store left in quite a wide area. And they either have it or they don't. And if you have to order something, it's weeks to get it. So it's kind of the way things are. But I'll tell you, I had to get some parts for my 2017 car, my 2017 Nissan. The two pressurized struts that hold up the hatch, and you open up and it goes psh, like that. They had failed and they could barely hold it up. And I didn't want it dropped on my head a couple times. You know, the dealer, I went there. I usually deal with the dealer because a lot of times the Nissan parts aren't any more money than the jobber stores. And I go there, they're saying 3 to 4 weeks to order them from the States. Well, we're only like 100 miles from the border. And anyway, well, we don't keep stuff for that year of a car. That's an older car. It's 8 years old. Like, it's not an old car. But anyway, when you're talking vintage stereo. But I'm finding with a lot of things now, where they used to be almost guaranteed to have parts for your 20-year-old stove or whatever it is you're trying to get going, they don't anymore. For whatever reason. Just something to figure out. So I'm going to use one of these caps. So these gray Elma caps, they're all over the place. You know, there must have been billions of them made, you know, back in the day. Just billions of them. Because they're in Yamahas and Pioneers and Kenwoods and even some of the off brands have them, like Keltron have Elma caps. So what I'm doing here is, ones that aren't too hard to get, I'm just carefully desoldering, putting back in, and resoldering. And what I do is I get a few lined up just with the leads bent over, and then I pull the amp down, hope you can see that, and just make sure it's on something firm and soldered here. The transistors, they are hard to get out. I'm just going to finish off on those. So there's the cap. The orientation of the transistors, you gotta really think when you replace these. I made this very skilled diagram here. BCE for the C1312 and C871. And then so when I put in a 3904 or KSC 1845, you gotta make sure the leads, so they are emitter base collector when they're shown in this position. A lot of people ask me about this kind of stuff because it's so easy to overthink it and then put the transistor in wrong. So you have the name, the flat of the transistor facing toward you. On this 3904A, it's emitter base collector. So when I put it in, I gotta take these two leads and put some lead dressing on them, like, you know, some polyvinyl chloride lead dressing, so they don't short, and then put it in like this. So then you get base collector emitter, like the original transistor. And the only guide that's on the board, this is frustrating because other Sansuis, they actually have a little more detail on the board. This just shows the part TR702 and then the flat side facing that way. So when you put these in, the flat side faces the opposite way, just like I did with this one. Just make a diagram you can understand. It doesn't matter whether you can understand mine. And then just repeat it. So through this board, when I get into the main board, right there, the toughest part's going to be getting these up. I could leave them in the circuit, and I might do that, but these here have been replaced. Those aren't originals. I noticed that. Couldn't really see it when this board was down. The PNP transistors are there that drive the output. And so some of these actually don't have it. The leads are still good, but these here, the NPN drivers, the leads are black. And I'm not even sure what they used here. Looks like C372. On here it says 2sc871s, but this is definitely something else. A697. Yeah, see, they've done a running change. The schematic's not even accurate. But you can actually go pretty wide, like transistor replacements in what is basically an audio amplifier. You don't need a very fast transistor. I remember back in the 80s, he came with all these high-speed switching amplifiers. You don't need high speed on an audio amplifier. I mean, you don't want to hear it going but you don't need very high speed, like a 50. HFE of 50 would work. Honestly, you wouldn't be able to hear the difference. You may not even see it on the scope. So I'll desolder that, and I'm just going to work my way this way and then down this way and put it back, trying to strain this as little as possible, because that goes on to all those switches. I mean, I watched one video where somebody was working with these, and they took the entire board out. Then when they resoldered it, it didn't work, because you got a couple of, even though you take a picture and everything. So we'll do it this way. This is the way I did it in a shop like 40 some years ago. So anyway, thanks for watching and listening.